So today as I say, we had to change the plans. Unfortunately, we were going to start our series on the NPCC Digital Award winners, but that's been postponed due to illness, and we will reschedule the session we had today, and we'll start those spotlight sessions in a couple of weeks. However, given the positive feedback from last week's webinar, we're going to go through a few more tips to help you and your teams work more effectively as we work through the technology that we've all got. Now, what we always do with the Wednesday webinars is focus on the tech that you already have access to. So you don't have to go out and buy something. You can basically start to use some of the functionality that we show you today as soon as the call ends, or even whilst the call's going on. So please do think about how you can use it. But I'm going to hand over to Mike, who's going to take us through a few bits and do the old Chris Whitty thing and tell us next slide, please. And we'll do some live demonstrations as well, but please pop your comments into the chat and we'll try and pick them up as we come along. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Dave, and hi, everyone. It's great to be with you again. I'm actually talking about a topic or an area that actually does connect everybody within policing. As Dave said, we focus on the areas that really concentrate on the products and the opportunities that we have. And with Microsoft 365, it is something that across policing we all have access to. And I think the figure at the moment with regards how much policing spends on Microsoft licensing is around about £150 million a year. And I think what strikes us with the work that we do, and from my point of view, from a learning and development point of view, there's so many areas that we could be making the most of, and we should be making the most of, but for a number of different reasons, we haven't quite grasped it yet. And I think a lot of it is down to understanding the basics. Then we can start moving on to the more sort of great stuff that you can do. And Dave's going to show us some wonderful opportunities a little bit later on. But what I'm finding with the work that I'm doing, particularly supporting forces, their senior officers and their staff officers and the executive assistants and the secretariat teams, is there's some of those basics that we just need to remind people of and get them going. That gives them the opportunity to get the foundation and then to build. So the first part of this webinar, you may find you know this, you've heard it, and you've seen it, but I think it's important to just remind them of one of the, or a couple of the areas that people sometimes just forget, and it will really help us to move forward. And as I mentioned, we have been doing some work with senior leaders across policing and their teams to help them to really think more about what the opportunities are. And so what I've done for this bit is just come up with 2 or 3 of the main points that consistently come up as can you just please clarify, or can you please just share and show? So it may be information that you know and ways of working that you know, but I just think it's important just to remind people. And the most consistent question that we have is, what is the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint? They hear the terms, they may not necessarily use OneDrive as their main area of storage. They would be aware of the SharePoint work that forces are doing, but they don't truly understand what that means and where it goes. So these definitions here, I think, are the most straightforward ways to remember the difference between OneDrive and SharePoint. And I'll give you a chance to absorb the bullet points above. But for me, those 2 lines at the bottom are the best way to actually differentiate between the 2. So OneDrive equals your personal locker. So that's where you keep all your data, your information, your files that you are working on. You're not looking to collaborate too much, even though you can collaborate through OneDrive, but the main focus around OneDrive is it's mine. It's in my personal, if you think back to the old days of when we all had sort of G drives and H drives or whatever letters you used, one of those was your personal drive. OneDrive is the place to store your notes, to store your documents, to store what you are working on. If you're then going to that point where that document, that information needs to go further afield, this is where SharePoint comes in, and that's that team or organization storage area, shared contact, and that's where it really does start to see the beauty and the benefits of working across 365, that whole collaboration piece. So whereas OneDrive was your personal locker, SharePoint is the Teams filing cabinet, and that's where you store information so anyone can pick it up if you're away or if you're out the office, or you just need that wider collaboration piece. So once we start getting that clarity, we can start thinking, right, where do I need to save it? Where do I need to keep it? But perhaps more importantly, where do I need to ensure that it is accessible so I can start getting people to collaborate? And if we look on to the next slide, that's where we start thinking about the different tools that are available to us through Teams and through 365, which is different to how we do things. So one of the other areas that we're finding an interesting challenge is that whole thinking about moving from Outlook into using Teams through the channels and the chats to start working in a different way. And again, we'll share with Dave later on with regards to Loop and how that collaboration piece goes on. But we're really keen for forces and individuals within forces to start thinking, right, if I share something, particularly internally, through a chat or through a channel, rather than forwarding an email and then that email gets forwarded on to someone else and then it comes back, and before you know it, you have an email chain which is 10 long. You can actually collaborate and find things a lot quicker. And when I've spoken to organizations about why is there perhaps that little bit of the reluctance to move away from Outlook and to embrace Teams and communicating this way, the feedback I get is understandable. It's that whole piece around, I know Outlook, I know how to use Outlook. I can even use it as my own filing cabinet because I can remember who sent me that particular document. Don't need to put it on a drive. I'll just go to that individual, go to the document, and it's there. And I get that. And I think we all get that. And working within learning and development, we understand one of the biggest barriers to adopting new ways of working is that challenge, that fear around change. But what we want people to start thinking more and more of is how you can actually benefit and how you can search. And it is very, very straightforward. So as you see on the screen there, and again, I'm sorry if I'm trying to teach you to suck eggs, that's not the intention, but to remind you that at the top of your Teams, in your channels and your chat, there is a search bar. And it's a great way to, for example, if I want to message Dave and Eyster, who's on the call, I can just put their names in. I can create a chat, and I can then change the title of that chat instead of it being Dave, Eyster, and Mike to actually being Wednesday webinar, 4th of May 2026. So it gives us that opportunity to put the title in where we would all remember. So you can use your name or phrases, and then you press enter. But then people start saying, yes, but then it all filters into one long list, and I don't know where to access. So if we look on the next slide, please, it's just a reminder that there are different ways that you can define where to look. You've got those options up there. So if you think it's something that's unread, obviously you have the unread button. But a piece of conversation or a communication would tend to fall either into a channel, so that's something that's being shared wider, an individual chat or a chat that is specific that people haven't met about it. So it could be 4 or 5 people together sharing a thought, ideas, sharing a document and collaborating. Or you have the meeting chat. So if you think about, right, okay, what was the action points and what came up as a result of that meeting and the conversations, you can go straight to that section, click on the button, and you can work across from there. So it's really looking at how you can move this forward. And I think one of the things that guest access and that wider opening of the doors, particularly around those chats, gives you the opportunity of communicating with colleagues across different organizations in a safe and secure environment. I appreciate that historically other forms of communication have been used, and you get that and you understand that. But actually, you've got to question how safe and secure are they? But if you do have that opportunity with your force where there is guest access there, and you do have that opportunity where you have opened the door so you can talk with partner organizations like other forces, then you can have those safe and secure conversations, and it's all stored together in one place. Because ultimately, the the opportunities that 365 bring is mainly around that whole piece around collaboration, which I'm sort of moving on to with Dave's piece. Because if we look at the next slide, and for anyone who's interested, this wonderful little document was done by Copilot. I just say, please create a visual around how you can share a document. And within seconds, this wonderful thing came up. But what we want people to do is to become more effective. We want them to be more efficient with their time and the way they're doing things. And there's so many options within 365 that you can use to share those documents. So you've got the basic ones here, and what we're going to be seeing in a moment with Loop takes that all onto a whole new level. But you do have that opportunity when you're creating a document to share it individually, to share it across a group within your organization or within your department, and you can bring that all together as one. And there's so much information and so much help on even the likes of Microsoft. If you just use the help button, there's little tips, little videos, little pieces of information which will remind you. And it all builds into a change of behavior, a change of approach, and ultimately adoption of new ways of working. So that was just a brief intro into just some of the key points that keep coming up when we talk with and when we meet with forces around what is it that you want to get more of out of 365 and Teams, and we then go on to different areas. But I thought it'd be worth sharing with you all the top three, and the offer is still there to forces within policing. If you would like us to come and meet with your chief officer team and the supporting group that's with them, and to take them through a bit of a show and tell, and to start thinking about how you work as an organization, then we're more than happy to come in and work with you. So please drop me or your business engagement manager a note, and we'll work from there. But I think, Dave, the best bit is now over to you.
Thanks, Mike. And I think that finding a Teams chat is such an underused piece of information. It gives you that reassurance you can go back and look for things as you go along. So do think of using that. And remember, nobody knows everything about all these technologies, and we sometimes assume everybody's working in the same way. So. And now we begin our praying to the demo gods, because we're going to go straight into our live applications now, and I'll bring them up on screen. But what we're going to do is to go into what Mike mentioned, Loop. And one of my passions is about co-authoring. And Loop is almost the light option for co-authoring. So I've just propped up a chat here, and this is a meeting chat, a regular, deep, recurring meeting chat that we have for us when we're doing these live webinars. We have a little meeting in the background to keep the space in our diaries before and after and allow us to coordinate. And I'm going to introduce you to a product called Loop, which many people have seen the symbol right at the bottom of the screen there in your type of message area, and never clicked on it, don't know what it does, etc. But Loop allows you to create a Teams chat and still work on it, and it's got a number of different functions within it. So as you can see on screen here, I've taken a little extract, and the scenario for this might be, we're just trying to work up a response to a particular email or an issue, or write a line, and this allows people to work together and to collaborate. So if I bring in Mike, I can add Mike into it, and Istu's on the call. And although the chat has already been posted, we can still edit it and work on it. So we can change the words in it, manage what we want it to do, until such point we're all happy that that's the statement. And then the owner of that particular loop can come in and change the status of it. We can take it from edit, we can set an expiration date. So you might say, right, okay, then in a team, who wants the overtime, and give them a deadline of an hour and a half, set the deadline, and then that list cannot be edited again. So it's just a very simple way of doing on-the-fly quick collaboration, either in a channel, a team, a meeting, or even an ad hoc chat. It's just another chat function. And then similarly here, there's a number of different functions. I'll show you them in a second. And I've actually combined two functions in this one. So you can have a checklist. Did we arrive 15 minutes early? Yes, there we are. And you can have people allocated to them. Did we test the connections today? Yes, we did that. Oh, and then we've just remembered that to put phones on do not disturb, because I forgot, I didn't do that. We can add all those other different actions and build them up and all collaborate, work on it, make sure we're doing it. So again, another great scenario this is, we might have had an email that needs a complex response from loads of different departments or colleagues across the force. You might create the Word document with all the questions that need to be responded, then allocate actions out to each individual person to do it. Now, instead of having to go through each of the documents all the time to make sure it's all been done, you could have a set of actions with statuses on there in the loop and message each other and manage the process through there. So we demonstrated this to a certain chief constable who absolutely loved this idea for his monthly emails to the PCC to address all the issues that come in from the community. He could allocate them, show him progress, set deadlines, could monitor them, and the staff officer could do prompts and reminders all in a Teams chat to make sure people are doing things. And if I click on the loop button at the bottom just here to show you some of the functionality, you can build a table, a bulleted list, a checklist, a task list, which is what you've seen above, or I could add, you can click on and add more tasks. But again, at any point, you can lock that session down, stop the editing, and manage who's got access to it, as you can with anything in the collaboration tools. If I discard that one and show you some of the other functions that you could consider using, a voting table is quite useful. And then when you come into what else you've got in here, you've even got a small Kanban board, a Q&A session, or once you get started, there's even more. So if I put a quick table in here, I can then click the further below it. We can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things to manage that. So you imagine that for that fast ad hoc collaboration on things. Very simple to do, easy to work with, and again, you can lock it down when you're ready to. And again, if I click the plus button here, if it'll just let me, you should be able to see some of the other functions that are in there. I was looking at this morning to do prep for this, and there's functions on here that have just appeared. I have no idea what Mermaid is. It says code your way to stunning diagrams with Mermaid. No idea what that is. Again, for even the techie teams, they can do a bit of code work in here. They can do call outs. You can mention colleagues to bring them in. Nice bits of formatting. You probably don't need all of these, but again, really powerful little tool to help you with the collaboration. Now, the big thing that always comes in is the co-authoring. And Mike's mentioned how you use the SharePoint as a key point of it. So this is our prompts for today's session. What we're going to do, what we're going to cover, make sure we keep it on track. And again, we do this through collaboration. Now, this works on PowerPoint, Excel, and Word in particular, and you can see who's involved, and you can keep control. So the first thing you do when you create a document, you want to collaborate, and to be fair, whenever you create any document you're working on for a business, save it into SharePoint. Save it into the shared area where your colleagues are working on it. And then you start doing your work, and then you suddenly realize, I need some help with something. So you click over to the share, you click the share button, and the idea of this is you don't send internal attachments anymore. You invite people to edit and collaborate with you. So I'm going to ask Iced and Mike to get involved, and I can give them a task specifically to add your comments and suggestions, or including in today's webinar. Bang. Click the send. An email's just fired with a link to this document in SharePoint, and they'll be able to come straight in and to go into it. So Aisha is already come in. She's on page 1. I can click a button and go straight to where her cursor is. You can see the purple cursor there where she's working on. I can open a quick group chat and have a conversation, which is not a problem. And again, we can look at the contact details as well, so we can get the contact details up on screen and make any messages. You can see Mike's just arrived in here as a result of the invite, and we can see where each individual is, and we can collaborate and work on it. Now, one of the feedbacks we often get is how do you know which version is right? Every time you make a change to this, it is managing the versioning in the background. So if you click on the file and info button here, you'll be able to see the full version history of the document. It's just whirring in the background. You can see all the modifications that have been made to this document, and you can roll back and go back to those versions, compare versions at any time, show the edits, etc. as we've worked through the document. But also you can then also come back out of version management, and manage access to the document at any time. So you can go back in, and again, because I've probably messed up a couple of things here, and I've got the feelings doing the demigods aren't playing, you can restrict access and revoke access, make it view only. And again, the beauty of this is when you are collaborating with colleagues, whether inside the organisation or one of your federated organisations, you can actually revoke access to the document without sending it them. Because you've only sent them the link, you can manage the access to the document at any time. So a really powerful way of collaborating. Ister, myself and Bex in my events team this morning were doing a bit of work on creating some use cases, and within 20 minutes the three of us had all collaborated on one document, and then I was able to share that document on with the person who needs it, who's taking the work forward for me, and to be able to access it. So a really simple way of making sure we've got collaboration, but then locking it down at the end and saying, right, we'll move on to that. You've got the same in Excel as well. You can put an Excel up here, invite people in, the same functionality is there. And if I did want to share it externally, and I want to send a version out that's the right version, again, you've got those buttons in here where you can send a copy as a PDF. And again, without having to leave the product, you can simply click that button. It will go away, create the PDF, open email, say who you want to send it to, and away you go. So a really simple way of being able to manage the way that you work to do this. I know there's a couple of questions coming in, and we'll try and answer them in a second as we get through everything that we've got coming through. But one of the other things that I always like to share, and I'll try and go back into my editing button, here we are, is I think that we've just confused everything with the sharing. I have, so I can't bring up editor. Let me just see if we've got another Word document open. I have. There we go. So as I say, in the share button, this is where you can manage access, to remove access, change access levels of any of the individuals or groups that have got access at any time. And you can, with a simple click, you can stop the sharing of this document. One of the other tools that's in Word that rarely gets mentioned is Editor. An editor is a bit like Grammarly in Microsoft. And again, this is a really useful tool that people don't realize is there. You can tell it what sort of standard of writing you want to do, what sort of style of writing you want. It gives you a nice little score. It points out any spelling or grammar issues in there, and points out any clarity or conciseness issues that you might want to do. Now, it's scoring reasonably well. Grammar is not great on this because it is pretty much a crib sheet. It doesn't need to have that. There's a couple of spellings here, and you can see here it's telling me to do this. And so this is kind of a spell check on steroids approach with grammar check. And again, it helps you out to work on that. So another useful tool that people don't realize is sitting there ready to use. Okay. The other last one we wanted to cover, and Mike mentions it in Teams, is around the use of Teams across borders. And because most forces are now federated with each other, you can now check the status of colleagues in other organisations or partner organisations and see if they're red, amber, green, see their calendar, arrange meetings, and to have those direct chats. So again, another way of changing your behaviour from moving from email to chat to collaborate with your closest partners in other organisations. We'll paste this guide into the chat so you can use this and share it with other colleagues. But it's a nice, simple, user-friendly guide of how you can check to see if a colleague in another partner organisation is firstly federated with you, and then you can start to chat, arrange meetings, and do all those sorts of things that you want to do on a daily basis so you can work with the colleagues in, say, your local authority if they're federated, neighbouring force, etc., to do all those things. And there is a lovely webinar on this you can replay, and there's another useful guide on using Teams in there for you. So again, we've tried to rattle through a few things there. There's so much we could cover in terms of the demos and covering all the different aspects, but that is a quick whittle stop through it. Mike, I don't know if you've been able to see any of the questions coming in, and if there's anything we can pick up.
So thanks for sending through the questions. We've got a few here. So Dave, this one's slightly different, but from Len Horton. I'm seeing different policies across forces. What's PDS's recommended retention policy / period for routine Teams chat?
Again, we did have a national blueprint which was set, but each force obviously makes its own local decisions. You can reach out to our information assurance team for some help on that, but there is some work being developed in terms of training for information assurance to help define those policies that you're involved in, Mike, isn't there? So I think that's reach out to your business engagement manager. He'll be able to put you in touch with the right person, Len, and it's good to see you back on the webinars as well.
Good to see an old friend. And with that training material that Dave just mentioned, we'll be doing a webinar about that in April, about a new training framework for information security. Question here from Alice. I was a fan of Loop, but it can add a little bit of confusion as the overlap of To-Do and Planner. I know that some IT&D were not keen on Loop as it isn't something that can be restored in the background. Example, if someone leaves and that loop is gone, it might have been just a workspace that's related to, but that was the reason why not promoted. Is that something that we're aware of, Dave? That there might be some...
it is. And to me, Loop is the ad hoc small tool. It doesn't replace the powerful tools for those audit capabilities. This is the sort of thing that you do on a smaller basis than you perhaps use those more powerful tools like Planner, To Do, or Lists for the ones that you need that audit capability. This is perhaps for that smaller, short-term approach. I find that's where it's probably use cases most suited in policing.
Perfect. Thank you. Len, thank you for the top tip, and I'll point people to, if you can have a look at that tip around sort of scheduling your message, which I think works really well. And Elaine has seen Mermaid on Copilot chat pages too, so it's becoming to be, people are beginning to see it out there. Yeah. Final question, and Nikki, thank you so much for the offer of help as well. We'll come back to you on that one. Laura Davis has asked, can you view Loop in Purview?
I believe so. I'd have to check that. And again, that's something your business engagement lead can go and do the check. But I believe everything that's happening in this space is available in Purview.
Perfect. That's the end of the questions, Dave.
Brilliant. So as we're getting close to the bottom of the hour, we always try and keep these under the half hour. Just looking forward to what's coming up. And as I mentioned before, we're going to have the spotlight on the digital awards in the next couple of weeks. We've got a Wednesday webinar next week where we're going to be joined by our new partners, the Police Oracle, who will be talking about how your force can take up some of those extra licenses we've now managed to negotiate on behalf of policing through the Police Oracle, and some of the benefits that you can do in terms of that. There's a lot more events on the PDS website. You scan the QR code, head over to the website. We're constantly adding more and more, looking forward. Right all the way through to the end of the year we're doing this. And for those of you, please make sure you've joined the Force Collaboration channel. There's now a new SharePoint page on the Force Collaboration channel, and we've actually put an events calendar on there with recommendations of the events to consider, the ones that you really should be thinking about making sure somebody's attending, and the ones that perhaps haven't been supported through PDS and NPCC as well, to give you a bit of a steer of which events where to invest your time to get the maximum value. And of course, Wednesday webinars are always green and recommended for you to get involved. Make sure you're on the mailing lists and subscribe to that YouTube channel to keep up to date with everything. And please just keep reaching out to your business engagement team. If you go to the website, there's a contact us form. It goes straight through to the right members of team, and we're able to get back to you as quickly as possible. You can always reach out to myself and Mike. That's our half hour up. It's flown by. We could cover so much stuff, and I remember one of the first Chiefs meetings we went in for 3/4 an hour, and 2.5 hours later his PA is dragging him out, and he wanted more. So there's so much more to this. We all assume everybody knows how to use all the tools we've got. The reality is none of us do, but this is a useful way to get a useful guide. So thanks for joining us, and I hope to see you next week when we're joined by Police Oracle. Thanks a lot.